You grabbed a protein shake this morning, probably the same one you have been grabbing for the last 2 or 3 years, shook it up in that plastic bottle with the little metal ball rattling around inside, and drank it down before you headed out to walk, lift, or do whatever it is you do to stay active at your age. And here's the uncomfortable part. That shake, or whatever else you ate or drank before your workout this morning, may have been quietly working against you the entire time. Not dramatically, not in a way you would notice right away. But at 60, 65, 68 years old, the margin for error in your body is a lot thinner than it was at 35. And what you put in your body in the 30 to 60 minutes before exercise is either setting you up to build something or setting you up to break something down. Most men over 60 are doing the second one without knowing it. This video is not about selling you an expensive supplement. It is not about a fancy protocol that requires a nutritionist or a gym membership or a blender that costs $400. What we are going to talk about today is something you can buy at a regular grocery store for under $5, something that men in certain parts of the world have been eating before physical work for decades, and something that a growing body of research suggests may be one of the most important things a man over 60 can do to protect his muscle, his joints, his energy, and his recovery. We are going to get into exactly what it is, exactly how much, exactly when, and exactly what most men are eating instead that is quietly costing them their strength year after year. And if you stick around to the end, there's a simple printable pre-workout nutrition guide we put together specifically for men over 60 that lays all of this out in one place so you do not have to remember every detail from this video. Let us start with what is actually happening in your body at 60 plus when you go to exercise. After the age of 60, something called anabolic resistance becomes a real factor. This is not a term invented by the supplement industry. It is a documented physiological phenomenon that researchers have studied extensively over the last 20 years. What it means in plain language is that your muscles become less responsive to the signals that normally trigger growth and repair. When a 30-year-old man lifts weights, his muscles get a strong signal to rebuild and grow stronger. When a 65-year-old man lifts the same weights, that signal is weaker. His muscles are, in a sense, harder to reach. They need more of the right input to get the same result. And one of the most powerful inputs, one that you can control completely, is what you eat before you exercise. Here is where the false belief comes in. A lot of men over 60 have been told or have assumed that the most important nutrition window is after the workout. Eat your protein after. Have your recovery meal after. That is when the muscle rebuilds. So that is when you feed it, and there is truth in that. Post-workout nutrition matters, but the pre-workout window, specifically the 30 to 60 minutes before you start moving, is where most older men are leaving serious results on the table, and in some cases, where they are actively doing damage. Here is the specific problem. If you go into a workout in a fasted state or with the wrong fuel, your body at 60 plus is more likely to pull energy from muscle tissue than it was when you were younger. Your body becomes more catabolic, meaning it breaks things down under stress and under fuel deprivation. A 35-year-old can get away with fasted training and come out the other side fine. A 65-year-old doing the same thing may be slowly losing muscle mass workout by workout without ever realizing it because the scale is not moving dramatically, and the mirror changes slowly. Now, intermittent fasting has been popular for about a decade and a half, and there are real benefits to it for certain people in certain contexts. But the blanket advice to train fasted that got handed down from younger athletes and fitness influencers is not automatically appropriate for a man over 60 dealing with anabolic resistance, lower testosterone, and a slower recovery timeline. This is not an attack on fasting, it is a flag that the rules change after 60, and if you're applying 35-year-old rules to a 65-year-old body, you're going to get results that do not add up. So what should you eat before you exercise? Let us start with the single most important thing, and then we will build around it. Eggs, specifically whole eggs, not just egg whites, eaten roughly 45 minutes to an hour before your workout. Before you click away, because you have heard about eggs 1,000 times, stay with me. Because the reason eggs work for men over 60 specifically is not the reason most people talk about, and the timing and the form matter more than most people realize. A whole egg contains somewhere between 6 and 7 grams of high-quality protein depending on the size. But more importantly, it contains all 9 essential amino acids in a ratio that your body can actually use. The biological value of egg protein, which is a measurement of how efficiently your body absorbs and uses a protein source, is among the highest of any food. It is higher than most protein powders, higher than most meats, higher than legumes, and for a man over 60 dealing with anabolic resistance, the quality of the protein matters enormously, not just the quantity. But here's the part that most people miss, and this is the part that is actually specific to men over 60. The yolk. For years, men were told to throw away the yolk. Eat the whites, skip the yolk, avoid the cholesterol. That advice came primarily from dietary guidelines that were heavily influenced by research that has since been substantially revised and in many cases directly contradicted. The 2015 Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee in the United States removed the previous recommendation to limit dietary cholesterol, stating that cholesterol is not a nutrient of concern for overconsumption. That was a significant shift. It was not front-page news, but it was a significant shift. The yolk contains leucine. Leucine is an amino acid that functions almost like a key and a lock for muscle protein synthesis. It does not just contribute to the process, it actually triggers it. And research published in journals focused on aging and nutrition has consistently found that leucine is particularly important for older adults dealing with anabolic resistance because it helps overcome the blunted signaling that makes muscle building harder after 60. When you throw away the yolk, you're throwing away a meaningful portion of the leucine. You're eating a less complete food and getting a less complete signal to your muscles. The yolk also contains choline, which matters for nerve function and muscle contraction. It contains vitamin D, which a significant percentage of men over 60 are deficient in, and which plays a documented role in muscle function and testosterone regulation. It contains healthy fats that slow the digestion of the protein slightly, which is actually beneficial before a workout because it creates a more sustained release of amino acids into the bloodstream rather than a spike and crash. 2 to 3 whole eggs, eaten about 45 minutes before your workout, gives you roughly 12 to 21 grams of high-quality protein with the full amino acid profile, the leucine trigger, the choline, the vitamin D, and the fat to pace the digestion. At current grocery store prices in most parts of the United States, a dozen eggs cost somewhere between $2 and $4 depending on the store and the region. That is roughly 25 to 35 cents per egg. Your pre-workout nutrition for the day costs less than $1. Compared to the protein shake you may have been buying, which can run anywhere from $2 to $5 per serving depending on the brand, this is a fraction of the cost with a higher biological value. Now let us talk about what to pair with those eggs, because protein alone before a workout is not the complete picture. Your muscles run on glycogen. Glycogen is the stored form of carbohydrate that your body keeps in your muscle tissue and your liver to fuel physical activity. When you exercise, you draw on that glycogen. If your glycogen stores are low going into a workout, your body hits a wall earlier, your intensity drops, your form gets sloppy, and your risk of injury goes up. For a man over 60, injury risk is not a minor concern. A torn muscle or a bad fall or a joint strain that would take a 30-year-old 2 weeks to recover from can take a 65-year-old 2 to 3 months, and the muscle loss during that recovery period can be significant. So the question is not whether you need carbohydrates before exercise. The question is which carbohydrates and how much. Here is where a lot of men over 60 make the second big mistake. They either skip carbohydrates entirely because they are afraid of blood sugar or weight gain, or they eat the wrong kind of carbohydrates, meaning fast-digesting, high-sugar foods that spike their blood sugar and then drop it right in the middle of their workout, leaving them feeling shaky, foggy, and weak at exactly the wrong moment. The right carbohydrate before a workout for a man over 60 is something that digests at a moderate pace, provides steady glucose, and does not cause a dramatic insulin spike. One of the best options is a small amount of oats, not the instant oats with added sugar and flavoring. Plain rolled oats or steel-cut oats, about a quarter to a half cup dry, cooked with water and eaten alongside your eggs. Oats have a glycemic index that is lower than white bread, lower than most breakfast cereals, and lower than most sports drinks. They provide beta-glucan fiber, which has been studied for its effects on blood sugar regulation and cardiovascular health. They digest slowly enough that you get a sustained energy release over the course of your workout rather than a spike and crash. And they are cheap. A 42-ounce container of plain rolled oats at most grocery stores costs somewhere between $3 and $5 and lasts weeks. If oats feel too heavy before a workout, a small banana is a reasonable alternative. A medium banana provides roughly 27 grams of carbohydrates, a mix of glucose and fructose along with potassium, which matters for muscle contraction and cramping prevention. Men over 60 are often low in potassium without knowing it, especially if they are taking certain blood pressure medications. And a banana 45 minutes before a workout is a simple, inexpensive way to address that gap while also fueling the session.
So the pre-workout meal we are building looks like this. 2 to 3 whole eggs, cooked however you prefer, scrambled, fried in a small amount of olive oil, or hard-boiled the night before. A small portion of plain oats or a medium banana.
Eaten 45 minutes to an hour before you exercise. That is it. That is the foundation. Now let us talk about what else matters in that window, because there are two more things that most men over 60 are either skipping or getting wrong. The first is water. This sounds obvious, but the numbers are not obvious. Research on hydration and exercise performance consistently shows that even mild dehydration, as little as 1 to 2% of body weight, can meaningfully impair strength, endurance, coordination, and cognitive function during exercise. For a 180-pound man, 1% body weight is 1.8 pounds, which is less than a quart of water. You can lose that through normal daily activity and a night of sleep without ever feeling dramatically thirsty.
Older adults have a well-documented reduction in thirst sensitivity. Your body's thirst signal becomes less accurate as you age. This means that by the time a man over 60 feels thirsty, he is often already somewhat dehydrated. Going into a workout in that state is like trying to run a car engine low on coolant. It works for a while, but the wear is happening. The practical step here is simple. In the 60 minutes before your workout, drink 16 to 20 ounces of water. That is roughly 1.5 to 2.5 standard water glasses. Not a sports drink. Not coffee as your primary fluid. Water. If you want to add a small pinch of sea salt to that water, particularly if you sweat heavily or if it is warm weather, that can help with electrolyte balance and may reduce cramping. A small pinch, not a teaspoon. We are talking about a tiny amount, maybe 1/8 of a teaspoon. The second thing most men over 60 are skipping in the pre-workout window is a brief mobility or activation sequence before they start their actual workout. This is not nutrition, but it belongs in this conversation because what you eat before exercise and how you prepare your body before exercise are part of the same system. And neglecting one undermines the other. A man over 60 who eats the right pre-workout meal and then walks directly into heavy lifting or aggressive cardio without any warm-up is still at elevated injury risk. The connective tissue, the tendons and ligaments, become less elastic with age. They need more time to warm up and become pliable. 5 to 10 minutes of light movement, joint circles, hip hinges, shoulder rotations, slow bodyweight squats, whatever is appropriate for your specific workout is not optional at 60 plus. It is part of the protocol. Now let us go deeper on why this specific combination, the whole eggs, the moderate carbohydrate, the hydration, the brief activation, was not what most men over 60 were told to do, and why the fitness and supplement industries had financial reasons to steer you toward more expensive and less effective options. The protein supplement market in the United States alone was valued at over $20 billion in 2022, according to industry reports. The marketing for those products is aimed at older adults with increasing intensity, because that demographic has disposable income and is actively looking for solutions to the exact problems we are talking about in this video: muscle loss, low energy, slow recovery, reduced strength. The supplement companies are not wrong that protein matters. They are not lying about that, but they have a strong financial incentive to make you believe that their processed, artificially flavored, expensively packaged powder is superior to a $2 carton of eggs, and the research does not consistently support that claim. A study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition looked at the muscle protein synthesis response in older adults after consuming whole eggs versus egg whites containing the same amount of protein. The whole eggs produced a significantly greater muscle protein synthesis response. The researchers noted that this was likely due to nutrients in the yolk beyond just the protein itself, including the leucine content and the fat-soluble nutrients that influence the anabolic response. This is a real study from a real peer-reviewed journal, and it is the kind of finding that does not get amplified by the supplement industry because it points toward food rather than product. There is also a practical wisdom angle here that goes beyond any single study. Look at the physical culture of populations where men remain strong and physically capable well into their 60s, 70s, and beyond. You will find that in many of those cultures, the pre-work or pre-activity meal is built around whole foods with complete protein and moderate carbohydrate. An older man in rural Japan who works physically demanding land or sea-based labor does not eat a processed protein bar before he starts his day. He eats real food. An older man in parts of rural Greece or southern Italy who maintains physical activity into his 70s is eating eggs, olives, bread, and vegetables, not engineered supplements. This is not romanticizing other cultures. It is observing a pattern that holds across many contexts. Let us also address the common mistakes that men over 60 make in the pre-workout window, because avoiding the wrong things is just as important as doing the right things. Mistake number 1 is eating too much fat too close to the workout. Fat slows digestion. A small amount of fat from egg yolks 45 to 60 minutes before a workout is fine, because the timing gives your body enough space to process it. But eating a large, high-fat meal, say a plate of bacon and cheese with eggs, 30 minutes before you exercise can leave you feeling sluggish, heavy, and nauseous during the workout because your digestive system is still working hard on that fat while your muscles are trying to demand blood flow and oxygen. Keep the fat moderate in your pre-workout meal. Mistake number 2 is relying on caffeine as your primary pre-workout fuel. Coffee before exercise is not inherently bad. Caffeine is one of the most well-studied ergogenic aids in sports nutrition, meaning it has documented evidence of improving performance in certain contexts. But for a man over 60, using coffee as a substitute for actual food before a workout is a problem. Caffeine can mask fatigue signals that your body is sending for legitimate reasons. It can increase cortisol, which is already elevated during exercise and which, when chronically high, contributes to muscle breakdown. And if you're drinking coffee on an empty stomach before exercise, you are potentially going into that session with low glycogen, no amino acid availability, and elevated stress hormones. That is not a recipe for building strength. That is a recipe for grinding down what you have. Coffee alongside your eggs and oats, fine coffee instead of your eggs and oats, not fine. Mistake number 3 is eating too close to the workout or too far from it. Timing matters. If you eat your pre-workout meal 15 minutes before you start, your body has not had enough time to begin digesting and absorbing the nutrients. The amino acids are not yet available in your bloodstream when your muscles need them. If you eat 3 hours before your workout, the window has largely closed. The sweet spot for most men over 60 is 45 minutes to 60 minutes before exercise. Set a timer if you need to. This is one of those details that sounds minor but compounds over hundreds of workouts into a meaningful difference. Mistake number 4 is ignoring creatine. This one deserves its own section because it is perhaps the most underutilized tool available to men over 60 who exercise. Creatine monohydrate is not a steroid. It is not a hormone. It is a naturally occurring compound found in meat and fish that your body also produces on its own. Your muscles use creatine to regenerate ATP, which is the immediate energy currency of muscle contraction. When you supplement with creatine, you increase the creatine stores in your muscles, which allows you to sustain higher intensity effort for slightly longer and recover between sets or intervals more effectively. The research on creatine for older adults is genuinely compelling. Multiple studies have found that creatine supplementation in men over 60 can help preserve lean muscle mass, improve strength outcomes from resistance training, and may have protective effects on cognitive function. The International Society of Sports Nutrition has published position statements supporting the safety and efficacy of creatine supplementation across age groups. This is not fringe science. Creatine monohydrate is also cheap. A 500-gram container of plain creatine monohydrate from a reputable brand costs somewhere between $15 and $25 and lasts roughly 100 days at the standard dose of 3 to 5 grams per day. That is 15 to 25 cents per day. It is one of the most cost-effective supplements with the most evidence behind it, and it is consistently overlooked by men over 60 in favor of expensive, fancy pre-workout powders full of stimulants and artificial ingredients that have far less research behind them. Adding 3 to 5 grams of creatine monohydrate to your pre-workout meal, dissolved in water or mixed into your oats, is a simple addition that may meaningfully improve your results over time. If you have kidney disease or are on medications that affect kidney function, check with your doctor before adding creatine. For most healthy men over 60, it is considered safe at these doses. Now let us talk about what this all looks like as a practical, repeatable morning routine, because the goal is not to understand this intellectually. The goal is to actually do it tomorrow morning and every morning after that. You wake up. Before you do anything else, you drink 8 ounces of water. Just a glass of water immediately on waking. This begins the rehydration process after a night of sleep and starts your digestive system moving. About 90 minutes before you plan to exercise, you start your pre-workout meal preparation. This does not need to be complicated. If you hard-boiled eggs the night before, you are already done with that step. If you are cooking them fresh, 2 or 3 eggs take about 4 minutes to scramble in a pan with a small amount of olive oil. While the eggs cook, you can put a 1/4 cup of rolled oats in a bowl with water and microwave them for 2 minutes. That is a 6-minute meal preparation. You eat your eggs and oats. If you are adding creatine, you stir 3 to 5 grams into a glass of water and drink it with your meal. You drink another 12 to 16 ounces of water over the next 30 minutes. 45 minutes after eating, you begin your workout with 5 to 10 minutes of mobility and activation work before you get into your main training session. That is the entire protocol. Eggs, oats, or banana, water, creatine if you choose to use it, 45 to 60 minutes of timing, 5 to 10 minutes of warm-up. Total cost per day is under $2 for the food, plus 20 to 25 cents if you add creatine. This is also a good place to mention the pre-workout nutrition guide we put together for men over 60. It is a simple, printable PDF that lays out this entire protocol on one page, including the food amounts, the timing, the creatine dosing, the hydration schedule, and a short list of common mistakes to avoid. It also includes a 30-day tracking sheet so you can log your workouts and notice patterns in your energy and recovery over time. If you want that, the link is in the description below this video. It is the kind of thing you can print out and stick on your refrigerator or your gym bag so you do not have to remember all of this from memory. Let us go back to the deeper question of why this information has not been more widely shared with men over 60 specifically. Part of it is the age-related fitness industry problem. Most mainstream fitness content is produced by and for younger people. The research on pre-workout nutrition in older adults is more recent and less visible than the research on younger athletes. The supplement industry targets older adults with products, but not necessarily with the most accurate or complete information about those products. And the medical system, while excellent for treating disease, is not always well equipped to give detailed, practical nutrition and exercise guidance to healthy older men who are trying to optimize their performance and longevity. There is also a cultural narrative that physical decline after 60 is inevitable and largely outside your control, and that narrative is simply not accurate. The research on resistance training and nutrition in older adults consistently shows that men in their 60s, 70s, and even 80s can build meaningful muscle, improve strength, and maintain functional capacity with the right training and the right nutrition. The ceiling is lower than it was at 30, yes. But the floor is also much higher than most men over 60 have been led to believe. A 68-year-old man who begins a consistent resistance training program with appropriate pre-workout nutrition can expect to see measurable strength improvements within 8 to 12 weeks. That is documented in the literature. It is not wishful thinking. The body at 60 plus is still capable of adaptation. It just needs the right inputs, the right timing, and the right consistency. There is one more thing worth addressing before we wrap up, and that is the question of individual variation. Not every man over 60 has the same health status, the same medication list, the same digestive capacity, or the same exercise goals. If you have type 2 diabetes or prediabetes, the carbohydrate recommendations in this video may need to be adjusted for your specific situation, and you should work with your doctor or a registered dietitian to fine-tune your pre-workout nutrition. If you have a history of cardiovascular disease, certain kidney conditions, or are on blood thinners or other medications that interact with dietary changes, please get professional guidance before making significant changes to your diet or exercise routine. This video is not a substitute for medical advice. It is practical information based on documented research and common-sense nutrition principles that most healthy men over 60 can apply safely. But know your own situation and ask questions when you are not sure. Now, let us talk about what happens over time when you get this right. In the first 2 weeks, you will likely notice better energy during your workouts. Not dramatic, but real. The difference between running on empty and running on fuel is noticeable within a few sessions once you make the switch by weeks 4 to 6. If you're training consistently, you may begin to notice that your recovery feels faster. You are less sore the day after a hard session. You feel ready to train again sooner. This is the protein synthesis effect compounding. Your muscles are getting the signal they need at the right time, and they are responding. By weeks 8 to 12, if you're also doing resistance training, you may see measurable strength improvements. The numbers on the weights you're lifting go up. The number of repetitions you can complete increases. Your joints feel more stable because the surrounding muscle is stronger. These are not small things. These are the differences between a man who is aging with strength and a man who is aging with decline. And it all starts with what you eat in the 45 minutes before you exercise. 2 or 3 eggs, a small bowl of oats or a banana, a glass of water with a pinch of salt, creatine if you choose to add it, a 5-minute warm-up. That is the system. It costs less than $2 a day. It takes less than 10 minutes to prepare. And it is built on a foundation of real food, real research, and practical wisdom that has been available for decades, but buried under layers of expensive marketing and outdated advice. If you found this video useful, I want to ask you one question in the comments. What have you been eating before your workouts up until now? Just write it in the comments below. It does not matter if it was a protein shake, black coffee, nothing at all, or a full breakfast. I want to know what most men over 60 are actually doing, and your answer helps me make better videos for this community. Also, if you know a man over 60 who is training hard but not seeing the results he should be seeing, share this video with him. The information in here is the kind of thing that can genuinely change the trajectory of how someone ages, and it costs nothing to share. In the next video, we are going to talk about what to eat after your workout, specifically the post-workout window for men over 60 and why it is different from what younger athletes do, including one common post-workout habit that may actually be slowing your recovery down. That video is already up, and the link will appear on screen at the end of this one. And if you want the printable pre-workout nutrition guide for men over 60, the one-page PDF with the full protocol, the timing breakdown, the food amounts, the creatine guidance, and the 30-day tracking sheet, the link is in the description below. Print it out, put it somewhere you will see it tomorrow morning, and start the protocol before your next workout. You have been working hard. Make sure the food is working just as hard for you.